In Panama City in Panama. I'm here with Brian and Julie of Simply Natural Farm Investments. A very interesting company. It's been around for quite a while. It's something I've heard a lot about. I actually ran into one of their people in the Bahamas, learned more about it then, and we actually featured it to subscribers, and I believe a number of our subscribers have since invested in it. So I wanted to come down and see it for myself in person. If you're watching this and it's on YouTube, this is actually private content that always goes out to our subscribers, but if this is on YouTube now, it means we've put it public, but this is generally just for our subscribers of our newsletters. So, Brian, thank you very much for having us here. And
thanks for coming.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. Definitely impressed by the very professional, very well run from what I can tell. But why don't you tell us, just start at the beginning about when you started this?
Sure. I mean, this goes back obviously a bit further than just farming. I had been in finance going back 1984. So, and I had a family that was already in farming in vineyards in Italy. My background is in Italian descent. So a lot of the family was already in farming as I grew up. But with that being said, I followed a career in finance and ultimately was focused primarily on three categories in the last 10 years, and that was water, oil, and agricultural technologies. So I really left the finance industry with a lot of my own money and came down to Panama specifically to find various types of investments for my own portfolio, as well as the portfolio of a fund that I was managing at the time, a couple of $1 billion. That was about 15 years ago. And ultimately came to Panama to use it as a hub to come to see what else was going on in Central and South America. Spent a lot of time in Argentina, Peru, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Panama, of course, Brazil, and bounced around to different territories, finding out about different opportunities, not only in agriculture but in the other sectors that I was looking to invest in. But ultimately fell in love with Panama as a country. I started to invest in farmland on a small-scale basis for my own portfolio, and ultimately some of my larger clients were asking what I was doing with my own monies, and I told them, and then they ultimately wanted to get involved as well. So they started positioning themselves close to my land, buying their own properties, having my large-scale farm management company manage it for them. And hence an opportunity presented itself when more and more of these large-scale investors wanted to get involved. I realized that there was a huge void in for the investing public and in the agricultural space. So I started to do some due diligence to find out who else was in the industry doing something similar, selling ultimately farmland, and I realized there was none. There were a few other smaller operations throughout the world. They were in different products and different categories, structuring it a bit differently. So it was really just a question of how long it was going to take for the attorneys and the accountants and my partners here in Panama to figure out how to bring the scale down from 100 hectares to something that was a little bit more palatable for the personal portfolio. And hence, after about 2.5 years of due diligence and work, we actually brought it down to a 1 hectare increment opportunity for the individual investor. Because I really felt, I still feel to this day, based on what's going on in the world, that every single portfolio, if you have the ability to have a portfolio, you should have farmland in your portfolio. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, there are just so many places to invest your capital. You can buy stocks, you can buy bonds, you can buy a condo, you can buy your personal home, but then you kind of run out of places that are more traditional, and then you start running into the alternative space, and then you get into the golds and the precious metals and commodities. But you really have to be very well versed. You have to have a tolerance for pain in some instances, to wait out storms in some instances. But it really, going back to the agriculture, the way we have it designed is that you're able to come in, own a piece of land. So there's your downside hedge in a worst case scenario, that the world stops eating, and you still end up with your underlying value, your land that ultimately appreciates in value because as soon as we clear it, it goes up in value. As soon as we plant it, it goes up in value. As soon as we put an irrigation system in, as soon as those trees start to prosper, that land starts to value. And even more important are the fact that a lot of the lands that we buy initially don't have any electric or plumbing or anything going on. So, most of the lands right now, over the last 5 years, are starting to get electric running down the roads from the municipalities and such. And just because of that move alone, when an entire territory of 1,000 hectares goes from no electric to electric, the arbitrage in valuation grows exponentially overnight. Forget about the fact that we've already done so much work to it, that there's a growing business on the land. But just that move alone, the land itself grows exponentially. But of course, then comes the fun part, and then ultimately is where the mangoes start to grow, or the limes, or the avocados, or the passion fruit, or the plantanos, or the bananas. All the different products.
Too, right?
What's that?
They're all organic.
They're all organic. So there's one thing, absolutely very important. It's how do you lower your risk, your risk, and that has always been a part of our model. And one of the things that we focus on is always being a specialty product. So our mangoes are named. Our mangoes are the best in the world. So the Lady Victoria or the My Fair Lady or the various other types of mangoes that we have, they're not commodity mangoes. They're not the Keats or Altufos. These aren't commodity mangoes coming from Mexico in huge loads. We only do 3 million cases per product. Okay, and then we literally change the product. We do this because 3 million cases is really where the number of buyers still outweighs the amount of product, at least 5 for 1. So you develop a great product, you always have 5 people to 1 mango wanting to buy it. And it still gives me the ability to negotiate a much better price for the product than a traditional commodity type mango would get in the open market. So, and we do that in all areas. We always graft. We don't ever just do seed to tree. All of our products are grafted, and that's basically we take a typical rootstock of, we're in Panama right now, so we take the rootstock of Panama, a Panamanian mango tree that ultimately is extremely hardy, understands the tropical weather conditions, understands the pest issues, and is strong enough to deal with any of that over the last 100 million years. And that's basically, we take a 100 million year old rootstock, and then we take whatever we want to grow from that rootstock off of the padron trees, the father trees that we can ultimately guarantee the production from. So we'll take a Lady Victoria tree that we know produces 950 pieces of fruit at 1 pound a piece. We know exactly that there's no fiber. We know the flavors from this tree. And we take the scion off of that tree and we graft it right onto the rootstock. And we know what kind of production, we know what kind of fruit, we know when it's going to harvest. And that's what we do in all categories: lime, avocados, mangoes, and all of our other permanent crop trees.
Yeah, going back to what you said at the very beginning about how it's hard to find ways to invest in farmland, that's something that I definitely noticed. At the Dollar Vigilante, we recommend a lot that you get into hard assets. So we're expecting we're going to have a financial, monetary, and economic collapse at some point in the next few years. And, for some people it'll be harder than it will be for others. But if you have some hard assets, and those would include things like precious metals, it'll also include things like farmland and properties, especially outside of places like the U.S. and a lot of those other sort of more developed areas that are a lot more expensive as well. So there's very few people actually offering what you're doing, and I know you've had it looks like a tremendous amount of success so far. Why don't you let people know how they could get involved? What would they be looking at if they wanted to get to invest in this product?
Sure. I mean, our categories right now, we have three different categories of investment, all permanent crop currently. So we have a mango investment at $38,500. We have a lime investment at $40,000, and we have an avocado investment at $45,000. Those are the three different entry points. All of them consist of 1 hectare increments. That's 1 hectare of land. That's 2.5 acres, just to give you an idea of the scale. It's a pretty big piece of property. There's a different number of trees on each one of those properties, depending upon if it's mango or avocado or lime. And we do everything. We ultimately have a separate farming company. So there's 2 different contracts. First you buy the land, and then you sign a contract with a farm management company. This farm management company does everything on the land that's needed in order to get it productive, from irrigation to clearing to taking care of the soil, adding soil remedy where it's needed, and everything from neem trees to the intercropping. So that's all done. It's all included in a one-time cost. And then from there, the maintenance fees that are done over the life of the farm, and to give you for instance, a mango tree or the mango farm would last 80 years or more. We say 60 to 80 years, but to give you an idea, there are mango trees that are productive right now at 150 years. So you can't really put a drop dead date on the harvest season for a mango tree.
Probably you'll drop dead before the mango.
Oh, there's no. Yeah, I mean, I would love to say to you, I'd like to have a conversation with a client base at the end of 80 years from now to determine what we're going to do next. But we'll see. Maybe someone comes up with the live forever pill or something like that. I don't know, but not in my lifetime. But yeah, and then ultimately, even towards the tail end, if we see a production start to drop off on a given tree, we just graft a new scion. We stump it, and then we literally create a whole new graft, and you have a whole new tree growing from that stump in 4 years. That's as productive as when we first planted it. So it's pretty amazing what we do on the farm. You'd have to ultimately come to see. I say to any of the viewers, I would highly encourage anyone interested, if they don't immediately have the ability to do so, after they buy it, or if they want to wait and come and see it, I would, please. I probably give 20 tours a month at this point to existing owners and or people that are looking to buy. So at least 20 people a month are coming to the various plantations. I don't think in 5 years there's been one individual that has come to see the plantation after they bought or before they buy and aren't impressed with what they see. It's a pretty amazing site. I mean, we're not talking about a small operation here. We're talking about thousands of hectares. There's well over, just in one particular plain, there's probably 2,000 hectares, a little over 2,000 hectares of mango field and plantanos and bananas. We'll get you up high and give you a perspective that you'll look down as far as you can see, 10, 20 miles of nothing but mangoes and bananas and farmland, and it's all part of Simply Natural. So, there's 150, 200 employees working on a daily basis at any given day, and we're only talking Panama here.
Yeah, and it's only a little over an hour away from Panama City to go out to see some of the plantations. And depending on traffic, of course, Panama City traffic can be a little bad. But Panama also is quite accessible to a lot of people, especially if you're in the U.S. So yeah, come down and check it out for sure. And I think most people will be quite impressed, as I have been. I know that we're sitting right here beside an entire room full of lawyers. So you guys, you actually, when you buy a hectare, you actually get title to it, and that's a lot what the lawyers work on. Is that correct?
Correct. So, yeah, I mean, we have, like I said, on the farm, 150, 200 farmers, but we also have a fantastic, well-structured back office where, there's about 35 going to 40 people into the new year of people that just focus primarily on the segregation process and the titling process for the owners. So, we get that done. We're very good at it at this point. And yes, you receive actual title for the land, just like the U.S. or Canada or any other major country. And it's a relatively easy process. I mean, certainly we've brought it down to a couple of steps, a few steps. It's not instant, sometimes it's 3 months, sometimes it's 4 months, but yeah, it always gets done, and we've at this point sent out hundreds of titles to the buyers.
That's great. Is there any opportunities for residency here in Panama that would be tied to the property ownership?
There is. I mean, if you want to go down that path and use this particular parcel of land for residency, absolutely. I mean, it basically meets the criteria. We just have to know up front if that's in fact what you want to use it for, because there's two different avenues that we would follow in order to get the property title. So at the infancy stages, if you tell us I want to use this for residency, absolutely, it definitely fits the.
That's great, because many people might be interested in that. The one thing we didn't talk about is return on investment. We've talked about the investment. So what are the sort of the typical standard returns?
Yeah, I mean the typical return, and I say this to most everyone because they think a lot of these numbers were made up out of a hat, or we basically did some research and came up with these numbers, but a 17% IRR, investors' rate of return, over the course of, call it 20, 25 years, depending upon if we're talking mangoes or avocado, but call it 17% investor rate of return. And this was done, not based off projections. This is done off historicals on some of our other plantations. Not only in Panama, we have plantations, but in Peru and in Colombia and Mexico and Costa Rica. So yeah, we base these off of legitimate live numbers.
Yeah, 17. That's pretty phenomenal. So I can see a lot of people being interested in that. It meets all the criteria for what I've been talking about, as I mentioned. It gives you a place outside of your own country that you just have some land somewhere that your government can't steal from you, and that if there's a big economic problem, you still have something tangible. 17% return on investment in a growing. I'm a big fan of Latin America, as it sounds like you are as well. You've been here for so long. I have as well. I see just tons of opportunity here. So I think a lot of people should, if they're interested in these sort of things, look into it. Is there anything else you want to say, or if not, just let people know where they can find out more information?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot more to say, but it's individual interests. Everyone has their own 10, 15, 20, 50 questions, and I would highly advise for you to come with that list of questions. I mean, it's nothing that I didn't have questions 10 years ago about agriculture, so I had the same questions, but most of that's been answered now. You have to actually get into it and do it. All of my partners have been doing this for 35 years or longer, 3, 4, 5 generations in some instances, depending upon where we are. But yeah, come with the questions, come with all the questions and ask away. There's really nothing hidden here. It's extremely transparent. And you can find out all you need to know. You can see our fruits and vegetables at www.simplynaturalharvest.com. That's easy. You can see a lot of the different fruits and vegetables, not all of them, but at least what we're selling both domestically and internationally under the Simply Natural brand. And then you can find out more about the various investments under www.simplynaturalinvestments with an S at the end.com, simplynaturalinvestments.com. You can go there as well and get a little bit more information. And of course, you come to any one of your conferences or call you direct, and they can get the information as well.
Yeah, so if you're interested in meeting the people from Simply Natural, looks like they'll be attending our Dollar Vigilante Internationalization and Investment Summit coming up on February 24th, 2017. So that might be a good opportunity as well to meet some of the people and get more information. And as I said, it's a really impressive organization you've got here. I've really been impressed at how well run it is and how professional it is.
Thank you very much.
All right,
I appreciate it.
So that's it for the Dollar Vigilante. If you like this, if you're on YouTube, if you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. And that's it for the Dollar Vigilante. Stay safe out there.